Welcome to Rewilding Part 2. Just getting set up with some final adjustments here, and then we'll get started in just a second. So in the interest of time today, we are going to hop right into this week's content with a little bit of a recap. So as we talked about last week, one of the primary benefits of rewilding is really its effectiveness to reset and nourish your nervous system, but in a very simple way without having to do too much. And I think at this time in our lives, no matter what phase of life you may be at, but I think just historically and in the time that we're living in, simplicity is golden. And anytime we can kind of minimize the impact to our nervous system, calm our nervous system, and really support ourselves with very simple practices, we're going to see a ripple effect of that. So I hope these practices are serving you. We're going to get a few more in today. And I wanted to also kind of address the fact that these practices and even some of the information that we've been talking about may seem very simple on the surface, and you may even question, how can that have any impact on my life or my nervous system or my body in general? But I would advise them to just trust the process, because the greatest transformation can occur in the simplest spaces. And in fact, I believe that is how transformation is created, is when we show up with just tiny actions every single day, or as many days as we can, because I don't believe in perfection. So when we show up as, with tiny little actions every single day, that is what's going to add up to major change. And especially depending on your starting point, and maybe depending on how much time you have to dedicate and to cultivate this relationship to your body and to rewild with nature as well, you may see the impacts right away, and you may see them very obviously. So it really just depends, because this journey, this work is very individualized and unique. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of it. So excuse me this evening, I am drinking a lot of water because it is 90 degrees here. And we recently moved into a new house that does not have air conditioning. So I am doing my best to get through and to keep my brain awake. So we'll be taking a couple moments to pause. But okay, so we also ended last week's session with a really great question. I'm hearing your knowing at the beginning of this journey versus maybe after a couple months, after a couple years. And after having time to reflect on that question more, I wanted to share two things in the interest of clarity. So one of the things about our inner knowing is that we all have it. Every single person on the planet have an inner knowing. And sometimes it's that gut feeling, that something's either right or wrong, or maybe I shouldn't do this, or yes, I have to do this. We all have it. So it's not something special or really unique to anybody. But what is unique about it is how we experience it. So for me, I had said last week that I have almost a verbal communication with my inner knowing, that I hear phrases, I hear guidance in a way that I can articulate verbally, usually, not always, but usually that's how it works for me. But I know other women and other people who their inner knowing, it's not something that they can articulate. It's a feeling, and they just kind of go with it. And if something feels good, they kind of just keep following the feeling, which I think everybody should. But so how you experience it is really what's unique. It doesn't really, there's no right or wrong way to experience it. And the amount of time that you spend in relationship with yourself, cultivating that relationship in stillness, I don't believe is necessarily correlated to how strong your inner knowing is. Everybody has it, and it really just depends what feels right for you as far as how you work with it. And so I just wanted to kind of take that moment to clarify that there's nothing special or different about me. We all have this inner knowing, and how it shows up for you may be completely different than the way that it shows up for me. So this whole journey, really, rewilding, homecoming, kind of all of it, is really just continuing to come back to yourself, continuing to come back to that inner knowing after being, either pulled away or after kind of wandering, after kind of being out in the world. It's really just more of a coming home to your inner knowing. And what that looks like is very individual. So just wanted to give that a moment of space within here because I think that could be helpful for some people. So before we hop into the content for this week, I do want to start with a moment of stillness and a breath because I feel like I need it as my brain actually feels like it's melting. So we'll take a deep breath for ourselves, for the people in our spaces. I'm going to close my eyes, but you don't have to. As you're taking a deep breath, ponder the question of what you came here for. What did you hope to get from rewilding? What did you hope to get from our time together? What needs rewilding in your life? Feel free to share those answers with me if you'd like. You can email them to me as well so that we can tailor our next session to some specific items and questions that you have. That feels good. I needed that moment today. I'm feeling a little off balance. So it's good that we're talking about grounding because maybe it will help me today too. So today, as I said, we're going to talk about grounding. And so this can refer to literally grounding into the earth and having a practice where we connect to nature and to the earth every day. Grounding also refers to and brings benefit and wisdom to grounding into our bodies and grounding into our inner knowing and ourselves, because we do, especially in modern times, spend so much time kind of what I call like out there. We're even on our phones when we're at home by ourselves. We can be connected to thousands of people if we want to. And even when we're walking, just out and about in our neighborhoods, lots of people, lots of things, lots of stimulus coming at us from kind of out there. And so one of the things that grounding can really do for us, whether you want to do it, literally with the earth, or if it means more to you to just have a space to reconnect to yourself, when we have a daily or semi-regular practice of grounding, we have roots for our wisdom to drop in deeper. When we ground, we're really tethered to something that can help keep us stable when stress comes along. So one of the great images, metaphors that I love is thinking of myself and walking through people a practice of visualizing yourself as a tree. And you have these deep, strong roots that are so deeply tied to the earth and intertwined and connected to maybe lots of other trees and lots of other things beneath the surface of the earth. And then you have the stable trunk. And as the trunk goes up, maybe there's a little bend in it. And as the breeze comes, as strong winds come, the tree can bend, it can sway a bit, but it's always rooted. It's strongly rooted, and it's not going to be ripped up. Now, of course, in nature, that can happen where the tree is ripped up. But if we think of ourselves like this tree, where we have these strong roots that serve as our foundation, our base, and we're grounded into these roots, then the winds can come along, the stress, the promotions, the family dynamics, the drama, the things come along and they're the wind that are causing us to bend. And we can bend and we can bend and we can bend and we can handle it, but those roots aren't going anywhere. And sometimes it may feel, if we don't have strong enough rooting, like we are just a blade of grass and we're just going like this and we can be ripped out of the ground in a second. And those are those moments of high stress when we don't have grounding and we're frazzled and we're harried and we think we have nothing to hold on to. So that's where this work of grounding can be very beneficial in calming our nervous systems and giving not only our mental health a boost, but our physical health as well. But if we feel confident and resilient that we can handle what's coming, what comes, then our body relaxes. Our body doesn't need to get triggered all the time. We don't need to live in a stress response state for a prolonged amount of time because our body feels that grounding and feels that safety that we get from being tethered to something that's very strong and deep. So there are a few practices that I love when it comes to grounding that I think are very effective. And one of them is with working with our senses, excuse me. There are many ways to ground, but using our senses is an incredibly simple and effective way because it's always accessible. We always have our five senses. Often it's easy enough to remember to use them as a way to connect ourselves back to nature and to connect ourselves back to ourselves. And so as a part of nature, we can use our five senses then to intentionally bring in the feelings that we want to create and this connection to our natural roots. So especially in these modern times, although I'm starting to not even like that term of modern times, we're consciously or unconsciously taking in communication, stimulation through our five senses all day long. And normally this serves to overload our nervous system, to lead to feelings of burnout, overstimulation, which of course then leads to shutdown and more burnout. But most importantly, it's also leading to these feelings of disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from the very people that we may spend the most time with, disconnection from family and neighbors and coworkers, and just disconnection from what feels natural to us. And so when our systems are overloaded, they start shutting down the systems that require more resources. So this is where we start to see the physical effects of stress as well. Digestion slows down, immunity slows down, detoxification slows down. Because if there are resources that are needed for that stress response, our body is prioritizing that. It thinks there's a fire. It's sending all its resources there and it says, hey, digestion, you can wait. So if we can calm that stress response down and start to spread out those resources and kind of redistribute them back to where they need to be, then we can also feel physically calmer and safe in our bodies. So this is really a parallel approach where when we're grounding, when we're engaging in these practices, when we're using our senses to ground, especially, we are addressing the physical need for safety, for calm, and then we're also addressing the emotional and mental need for a clearing of space and a calming down. And so it's really benefits everywhere. But we can also, so I was saying we can, we're taking in the stimulation via our five senses all day long, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. But we can also harness the power of our five senses then to bring about more calm and ease and reconnecting to our natural state of being that we're after. So one of my favorite ways, and I think it's one of the easiest to remember, is with a practice called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're looking for 5 things that you can see, and you want to name them. If you can look around your space and name the 5 things that you see. And I also love this practice because you can do it anywhere. No one needs to know you're doing it. And it's available to you all the time. So you're looking for 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear. So for instance, even right now, I can hear a fan, I can hear my neighbor, I can hear the hum of something outside my window, and I can hear some beeps from the printer below me. So there's my 4 things, very simple. 3 things you can smell. two things you can feel. So this could be with your fingertips. It could be on the skin on your arm, legs, feet, whatever it is, something that you can feel against your skin. And then one thing you can taste. So going through this practice a handful of times, it can start to feel automatic, that like you're looking for grounding. You've recognized through your practice of stillness when you need some care. You're able to identify now when you need a little bit of grounding. And you can jump right into this practice. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I know I can do this. And it can take 2 minutes. It can be even shorter if you have kind of a lot going on in your space. And then the second practice that I love with grounding is grounding into the earth. So this is one of my favorites for myself, just because I am not a city person. I'm not urban. Even though I live in the suburbs, I feel like I shouldn't be here, that I should be where there's more wide open spaces. But I am very grateful to be where I am. And there are lots of mature trees. I see lots of sky above me. But I love being able to soak in nature whenever I can. So if you have been craving something like this, more nature, more connection to nature, this could be a practice for you. So this is a practice called earthing. And you can mold this to be whatever you need it to be. Typically, it's a practice of going outside and standing on the grass with your bare feet for a few minutes. You can walk around the grass. You can just stand. Depending on how much time you have, I recommend taking a moment to kind of visualize as you're standing there, feeling the grass beneath your feet, and then visualizing the dirt beneath the grass and the layers beneath the dirt all the way down to the earth's crust. So that's one way of really feeling your feet being connected deeply into the earth. The other thing I love to do is visualize that there are roots coming out of the bottom of my feet. And they're rooting into the earth. And again, kind of moving through all the layers of the earth until my roots are just wrapped around the center of the earth. So that's one way. And one really funny, I wouldn't say funny, one curiosity that I love about the human body is how much information can come through the bottoms of our feet. So if you're into essential oils or you've ever used essential oils, they're often recommended to be applied to the bottom of the foot. And the reason for that is that there are so many sensors and receptors on the bottom of our feet taking in information and traveling throughout the body. And so when we can walk barefoot, especially in the grass, our feet are taking in the information and the calming and the grounding from the earth and using that to send calming messages throughout the body. It's a connection and a relationship that our bodies intuitively really pick up on. And they know this grounding is, it's not intuitive. That's not the word I was looking for. But like that this is the way that it's supposed to be. And we're supposed to be connected to nature more closely than we are. And so to stand with your bare feet, you can feel tremendous grounding impacts, even without spending a lot of time. Another thing is just you can rub your hands along the grass, gardening, if that's something that you like, anything where you're getting your hands or your skin really close to the earth is a tremendously grounding practice. And as you do these practices, and we're going to get into a couple more, intention can have a huge impact on how you receive the benefit. So if you're standing outside and you have your feet in the grass, setting an intention of, I'm here for grounding. I'm here to receive stability. I'm here to feel the calming effects of connecting with nature. When you set that intention, you're more likely and more quickly going to receive the benefits and the results that you're looking for. So how we approach something and our intention with the practice is always very important. In this vein of earthing, think of other natural elements that you naturally connect with, anything that feels calming for you. I've always loved the water, lakes. Sometimes being in it and running around and swimming around, other times just watching it. Showers, watching, water trickle through the faucet and kind of come down. Feels very cleansing to me and very soothing. Water is very soothing for me. But if we think about fire, campfires, fireplaces, how calming that can feel, mesmerizing and connecting. If you've ever just kind of stared at a campfire, that's a meditative moment in itself. So if there's anything like that, any natural elements that you find you're naturally drawn to or connected to, I would invite you today to think about how you could bring more of that into your life. Could you light candles more regularly so that you're connected to that element of fire? Could you intentionally set aside a moment or two in the shower just to feel that cleansing water coming down off you? Going to a lake, making a trip to a nearby lake where you are, or splash pads or fountains. I found that even when I'm at the splash pad with my kids, like it can be chaos. It can be incredibly overstimulating. But when I can just find one of those like offshoots and just watch the water come out for a few moments, it can be incredibly calming and balancing at a moment when I didn't think I could access calm and balance. So let me check back in with my notes here. Okay, so those are a few very simple practices, but we're going to get even simpler. So even in the times you think you have no time for grounding and no time for, unfrazzling or detangling your brain, I love the idea of anchoring and rooting your day around looking up to the sky in the morning and looking for three things, noticing any three things above you, and then looking down and noticing three things about the ground or the floor below you. Simple, very simple. And then at the end of your day, looking up, three things about the sky, and looking down, three things about looking down. And I find this practice especially to be such a great way to start and end the day, because no matter what happens in the in-between, we can harness and feel grounded in those moments. And so we can ground back in at the end of the day by looking up and looking down, remembering that we are part of nature. The sky is always there. The sun is always there, even if we can't see it. The moon is always there. Ground is always beneath us. Grass, dirt, snow, leaves, bugs, tree roots. It's all there at the beginning and the end of each day. And then the final practice here that I say these are all my favorites. They probably are all my favorites because I love them so much, but is visualizing. So let me back up a second. As we walk throughout the day, people we interact with, situations that we're part of, work that we do, we lose little pieces of ourselves as we walk around. Little fragments of energy that we left, a piece that we left in a conversation, a piece that we left on someone's desk. And these are like unconscious little ties that we have, maybe kind of little like, I kind of like that idea, like little fragments of energy that we've kind of left throughout the day. And at the end of the day, what I love is thinking about and visualizing all that energy that's been scattered. I kind of imagine them like seeds. And then I imagine my arms just coming in and scooping up all those seeds and bringing them back. Excuse me, I touched my microphone. And so I invite you to try that practice as well, because I know sometimes as we move throughout our day, and I've had this conversation in a few different spaces now, So I hope it does serve you. But I've had this conversation a few times now where women are noticing that more and more is being required of them and asked of them, and that there are lots of contradictions. There is an expectation to do things that run contrary to our nature, but also that contradict each other. And so one of the things the feeling that has come up, I'm trying to articulate it in a way that feels the most true to me. So excuse me while I think this through. But one of the feelings that I've heard a lot of women express is like they feel like they are giving away parts of themselves all day long. And that it's really hard and difficult to bring those pieces back, to feel at home, to feel the agency, to feel the confidence and the rooting of who they are when all day long they're just giving out. And that's why this practice, it doesn't feel like it's just for me. When I visualize these fragments of energy that I have dispersed all day and having my arms come in and just scoop them up and bring them back to my heart center, it is one of the most fulfilling visualizations that I have ever used. And I have shared it with a few clients with very positive feedback. So I share this with you and I invite you to try this one on. If not tonight, tomorrow night. Try it on a day, especially maybe where you feel depleted. This is a moment to gather yourself back and come back home and show yourself the love and the support that you've needed, that you've been giving out all day long. And that's one of the greatest ways to go to sleep, is having that feeling of calm and comfort and protection and being at home within your own body. And to give that to yourself is one of the greatest feelings, to know that you can give that to you. No one can take that away from you. So I think tonight that's a perfect place to end. We were also going to talk about boundaries, but of course I'm always overly ambitious. We will save boundaries for next time, but please email me your questions before next week if you have them, so we can wrap them into our last call together. Our next section is going to be Monday at 6 o'clock again. Again, of course, there will be a replay, and I will be sending this out soon as well. If there are questions, clarifying questions, feedback that you have for the series overall or tonight, please just send them my way via email. And I can't wait to catch up with you all next week. Have a great night.